After 9 years off the screen, Chucky returns. Here's my review of Curse of Chucky. Hey guys, how was you? Curse of Chucky was released in 2013 and was a follow-up to Seed of Chucky, which essentially killed the franchise for 9 years. I'm happy to say that Curse of Chucky is a return to form and a soft reboot in a lot of ways. However, they're keeping the continuity with the original series. Curse of Chucky is primarily set in one location, in the house where Nika lives with her mother. She's a very sheltered person, she's in a wheelchair and her mother is very protective of her. Played by Fiona, Nika's character is absolutely fantastic, and we get to see a lot of the backstory about how Nika became how she is and why her mother acts towards her the way she does. So one day a package arrives for Nika's mother. Nika signs for it, and inside the package is a good guy doll. The package contains Chucky. However, he's not the Chucky that we saw in the last two movies. He looks slightly different and he's completely fresh. He looks completely new. There's no scars or any of the cuts that we saw him on the previous movies. So when Nika's mother dies in what looks like a suicide, the family come to stay to arrange for the funeral and make preparations for the future. Nika's sister, brother-in-law, niece and the niece's nanny, Jill, come to stay while they make preparations for the funeral. And one by one, the characters are starting to get killed. This movie does a really good job of building tension, and I've got to admit that Don Mancini, who wrote and directed this movie, has made a vast improvement over his last effort, which was The Seed of Chucky. This movie actually does a good job of building tension, and as I said earlier, it's kind of like a soft reboot. We don't get an awful lot of backstory in the first part of the film. We just get the tension building as all of these events unfold. And this movie looks pretty great. It also made me think back to Child's Play 1 because there's a lot of similarities here with the way the story is built. We don't actually see Chucky move or do anything until about halfway through. And even then, we don't get to see an awful lot of Chucky running around. The wisecracks are kept to a minimum, and what we get is a nice, taut thriller along the lines of the original movie, which I think is absolutely fantastic. This movie is a lot better than the last 2 or 3 movies that have come before it, and it is a true return to form and certainly rivals the original movie in terms of building tension and giving us a good, well-told story. Now, the child element of this movie is Alice, played by Howell, and she does a really good job of building this rapport with the doll. She's kind of like the Andy Barclay character in the original movie, in that Chucky's whispering to her and telling her things, and she repeats them back to her parents, and they don't like that because of some of Chucky's attitude. I've had to niggle about one thing in this movie. There's a scene quite early on where they're all sat around the dinner table eating a meal. Chucky's poisoned one of the meals with rat poison, but we don't know which one. So we get to see an extreme close-up of everybody putting food in their mouth. I'm telling you, it is full screen, people putting food in their mouth and then chewing it. We get to see this for 6 people at least as it goes around everybody at the table, and it's just a little bit too much. Yeah, show them eating for sure, but we didn't need to see an extreme close-up of people opening their mouths and putting food in it and chewing. That's just going a bit too far. But it's a small niggle, but it's one thing that every time I watch this film just gets me. It wasn't necessary to do it in that way. So the characters are killed off one by one, some in quite inventive ways and some in more traditional Chucky ways, i.e. with a knife. We get to see the cast dwindle until it's just Nika and Chucky face to face. It's here where we learn some of Chucky's backstory, and it's intertwined with bits of the original movie. So we'll learn that Chucky was actually completely infatuated with Nika's mother, and he was the one that actually caused Nika to be in a wheelchair. We learn a lot of other things, and it starts to make sense. We get flashbacks to the original movie, and the way they've built that in to this movie, then bring it up to date. So even though at the beginning it feels like a soft reboot, it actually isn't. It's continuing the story, and it mixes the two stories together in such a way is very, very clever. However, it does get a little bit too clever when Tiffany pops up at the end, which is really what none of us wanted. However, it doesn't take away from the story. This story is nice, it's tense, it keeps you on the edge of your seat. There's one part in the movie where Nika's hiding in an elevator and Chucky's slashing at her with a knife, and he cuts her across the fingers, and every time he slashes across the fingers, I could just feel it.
You feel that, don't you?
It is really good at making you feel what these characters are feeling, and we actually do really get to empathise with Nika and her struggle, especially when the story ends and we see where Nika has ended up, which sets up perfectly Cult of Chucky, which is coming next month in time for Halloween. This story is absolutely brilliant. I really enjoyed this from start to finish. It's a movie that actually, compared with Seed and Curse, I can watch this movie again and again. I really enjoyed it, and I do think it rivals the original Child's Play in terms of the way it's developed, the way it's structured, and the way it acts. The movie looks great. It is absolutely fantastic. Don Mancini here has written a good movie, and he's actually done a lot better job of directing. This movie looks great, And even though it was released straight onto video on demand, this movie could have gone to cinemas and it would have done absolutely fantastically. I certainly can understand why it was released straight onto video on demand, because after the last movie, Universal probably had very little confidence in the movie. But Cult of Chucky also is going straight to video on demand, and I'm not quite sure why, because certainly from what I've seen, it looks like it could have quite a cinematic look to it. And I think it could actually do quite well, because the budget isn't going to be massive. It never is on these sort of movies. But Cult of Chucky comes next month. This month we're talking about Curse of Chucky. And Curse of Chucky is an absolutely fantastic film. The characters are done well. It's acted really well by Fiona Douriff. Brad Dourif, who plays Chucky, is absolutely on form here. We get the wisecracks to a minimum, but he actually does get to play the part of Charles Lee Ray in a couple of scenes in flashback, so we actually get to see him on screen for once. This movie is absolutely fantastic. I really enjoyed Curse of Chucky, and I'm going to give Curse of Chucky 4 out of 5. I really enjoyed it, and it's one that I'll revisit again and again. So thanks very much for watching, guys. I really enjoyed Curse of Chucky. Let me know down below what you thought of Curse of Chucky. Hit a thumbs up if you like this review. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already, and I'll see you next month for Cult of Chucky. I cannot wait. Thanks very much for watching. See you later. Bye.